into this presence, there were certain people who just showing up in the room would jolt me back. And I guess it was intimidation, fear, anger, any of these, if they arouse any of these feelings in you. And very often that can be a very close friend or family member, right? Or your spouse. And I didn't drop to Kabbalah. I dropped to the solar plexus. So I felt like going from fifth to third, like a bang, and then that pain in the digestive area, similar to when you're afraid of an exam and you get a bit of a stomach ache. It was this movement down to that prison again. So that's when I began to sort out that all of these feelings or dispositions are directional. They either move up or they move down. And understanding it for each of them becomes your buoy to get back out. Like we were talking about the depression earlier, right? You need to be grateful and give thanks. And so I'm sure there's, a lot of words that can go in each category. I just put the most important here. What surprised me was the effect of grief, because I never thought of grief as a bad thing. A lot of cultures want to emphasize grief, and grief can really push you down quite fast. And for me, it was a big realization that can happen, and you need to move out of where it takes you. And if you think from the cosmic perspective, there's no reason to have grief, because you never leave anything. Nothing ever dies. It's just our perception or the material essence of it that is gone. So, or distance is put between you and another person, whatever, right? But it's just distance. In your mind, you can be there with them. In your heart, you can be there with them in an instant. It just takes a lot to recognize that. And the other thing I want to mention is love and agape are two different things. If love is a feeling, agape is not. Agape is a force that moves us up. And can we feel that through love? Yes. Do we nourish it through love? Yes. But don't think of, falling in love with somebody as a force of agape. It's a stronger thing. Actually, when I was growing in Greece, friendship is very important in the Greek culture. And for me, the definition of friendship is that you're willing to die for somebody. You're willing to go all the way. And when I came in the States, friendship meant we played tennis together or squash or whatever. And I thought, oh, that's a very different level of friendship. But I think as you move west, you lose that sense. It's much more predominant in the East. And it's just how our globe is made up.
Interesting. That's a great share, because as I got older, I realized the difference between an acquaintance and a friendship. There's more people were acquaintances in so much ways than a friendship.
And especially because when you live in a business, in a busy calendar, you do things, your time goes into doing. it doesn't go into exploring the other person. So you do things with others, but you don't spend time with another person. You go watch TV or something, right? It's lacking from the life here. And it's a spiritual thing that is lacking by not doing that. You know, by in Greece they call it watching the sweetness of the hour, like during sunset, you know, sitting up there drinking a glass of lemonade, something, and talking to somebody about their innermost experiences. It doesn't happen here. But there we go. We're talking about those experiences now. The other question to address as we go through here is, when are we operating with soul versus spirit? So soul consciousness is what brings us to spirit. You don't go there from matter to spirit, right? Their mediator is the soul. And consciousness is something we evolve in the soul. So let's see. So using the baptism symbology and the four, it's not elements, it's densities really. I will continue with that language only because it makes it easier to remember if you put something at the symbolic level there. So if this is what first presence looks like, there comes a time when you feel like you're pulled inside out, like a sleeve pulled inside out. And you feel, oh my God, I belong with everything. I'm part of everything. That's entering second presence. Okay. And second presence is the presence of soul. You're only, when you're there, you exist in soul. The material is almost like, yeah, it becomes an illusion. You say, oh yeah, your reality is the reality of the soul. And this is, you see the Star of David here in the middle. David means initiate in Hebrew, and he was an initiate, and that symbol in the Hebrew religion stands for initiation, the six-pointed star. So
Is it also symbolic of the Merkaba?
Yes. The Merkaba is the equivalent from the Egyptian tradition, and it's not two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional, right? So the Merkaba is through two pyramids coming together like that. And I'm sure that's true for the Star of David as well. I don't think they were different. They just got stamped into history a different way. So this is the place where you meet up with masters. This is the place where you can feel, you know, a higher essence like Christ address you, or you are in dialogue with them. And this is the second presence, and this is what I talk about when I say in Greek the words for second coming in the gospel means second presence. They don't mean coming. You could stretch it and translate it as, oh, here I'm present, therefore I came, right? But it's a misunderstanding or a mistranslation of the gospel to say there is a second coming. There is a second presence in it. You can meet Christ, but you go there. It's not going to come to you through some type of miracle or because you become very obedient to what the church mandates. So the air baptism happens when you break down the heart wall, when you totally, brick by brick, break away from the karma. Because you exist in presence. You don't exist in the past. You don't exist in the future. You exist in the now, in the presence. And that's where you can feel the presence of the divine. So for me, that the two feelings I had was one that I was a sleeve that got turned inside out. And the other is that I was part of everything. I was part of every bird, every tree, everything. I mean, I could still see the world around me, but I didn't feel I versus the world. I was just part of it. I don't know how to explain it beyond that. And it's not something that comes, and you don't stay in second presence, right? You return to first presence, but the more you break down that heart wall, the more you forgive and let go everything, the easier it is to go there. And I go there at night. Mostly this is my process. Although something else has started happening ever since we started doing these recordings. And that is that I get totally abducted the day before. And it comes as a migraine or a stomach ache or something that totally takes me out of the secular life into just being dozed away, as my husband says. And it's just it's moving into second presence. It's not as glamorous as feeling to be part of the trees and everything, but mentally I am there. Otherwise it's at night, and in the morning when I wake up, I have to spend some silent time to register in my left brain what I'm bringing over. It used to be that I
total
had,
presence, being in total presence, right?
right. It used to be that I had to write it down or it would be gone. And now I just record it in my left brain. And I think that is because I have removed the old code, or most of it, from my brain, that I can do that. It's more efficient. What else do I need to say about that? Oh yeah, there is a process by which you can let go. And it's again symbolic. What you do is, if you have a problem, somebody you're angry at all the time, or some problem that keeps recurring and makes you mad, what you need to do is pretend you're catching it in your hands, let's say at the level of the first chakra, and bring it up, lift, name it there in the first chakra, and bring it in front of your third, and offer it respect, and say, make it clear that you know the problem, you see the problem, you name the problem. Offer it respect, lift it to your fourth, offer it love, and lift it to your fifth and offer it freedom. And as you offer it freedom, place the problem in the ground or in a pot, place it somewhere so it just doesn't pick up and go to somebody else. And I had to do that again and again and again with singular problems at a time. And then finally they're gone, right? So I don't know why doing it, acting it out helps, but it does. What else do you guys want to say here?
To me, that's acknowledging, acknowledgement.
You acknowledge it, then you offer it
You let it
respect, right?
Right,
It's your
right,
teacher. And
right.
you offer it love, it's part of the cosmos.
Right.
And then you offer it freedom. So it's
Right.
not part of you.
Correct. And, you know, there is a lot of things of the saying, you know, acknowledging the problem is the first step in releasing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, people have issues that they can't acknowledge and accept. So again, it's just another, you know, think of what's the AA saying? Just totally left me. But to accept the things I cannot change and to change the things, you know,
Right. The St.
this,
Francis prayer.
right, you know,
Yes, be careful though as you acknowledge it that you don't go into the story of it.
correct.
Because the story of it is the drama that captures you slave to it,
Right.
right? Puts you right back in karma.
And you know, interesting that Janine, you know, when we talk about life alignment and things like that, you know, there's always a story behind it. And sometimes I think in some of that training, I thought people put an emphasis that to know the story instead of releasing the trauma, you know. I realize now that I had more trouble with that than I did, because, and it reminded me sometimes of you know, in psychotherapy and stuff, you know, they want you to go over and over, you know, childhood trauma, and working through those steps. I felt like it always it enhanced it, you know, just like in grief. You know, my mom just recently passed away, and one of the things when she always wanted to go to my dad's stone and stuff like that, and that was important to her, and I respected that. But for me, it always brings up the pain, and I feel the pain, I acknowledge the pain, but I don't always want to feel that. I want to release it. I want to let it go. So a lot of what you're sharing today helps me acknowledge to myself why I feel so different from them. You know, why my thinking is so different from them. And it puts a big distance between me and other people, you know, my family. But it helps acknowledge me for me. And I thank you for that. Yeah, for sharing this information.
And the acknowledgement is the important thing. You don't need to understand how it happened, why it happened, who made it happen. None of that, right? Because that pulls you in the story. The minute you're in the story, you're in trouble.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I said, I don't know why I know it, but acknowledge it and let it go. Because I don't want to be there. I don't want to be in that spot. I don't, if it's not just the uncomfort, I feel it, you know, we learned it from above the line and below the line, you know. I want to be above the line all the time. I want to be in that space, you know. Some people call it a headspace or being spacey and stuff. But that I
To
feel
me, the above and the line is you move out of Kabbalah presence to first presence.
yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean you're in your heart, in your head, in your intestines, none of that, right? It means you are in control of all of that, right? You are your own master.
Right.
So
then there's the additional moving into the second presence that that goes beyond that, which is
right, but that doesn't mean the second presence is better than the first presence, right? It just means you freed yourself up to experience the second presence. You cannot really be in second presence and at the same time work in an office, and you know, it's more where you go in meditation, let's say, would be the
like
second
a dream state.
presence. where you go when you seek for answers. Different people go there in different ways at different times. It's
Mhm.
not a permanent state, though.
Right.
You act in presence when you are in first presence. So here I talk a little bit about what it means. I don't know that it is awakening the fourth. That for me, going through the fourth was the hardest because it was so painful. If I tried to raise my consciousness from third through fourth to the fifth, it was painful. So I would very often, being a thinking person, go from third to sixth down to the fifth, right? Um, the fourth was very difficult, and it took me years to clean it off the pain. And it's that letting go process. While you haven't let go, like if you tap your chest and you're hurting, that's the brick wall. It's also affecting your immune system, right? Because in Qigong, you tap your chest to raise your immunity. But any pain you feel there is brick wall pain. So this is more from Rudolf Steiner. The 12th has the fourth has 12 petals, 6 of them asleep that need to wake up as you remove the brick wall. So you need to learn to regulate your thought. Don't let your thought be captured by a dogma or by a fear, or be your own thinker, right? That's what we really have to learn to do. And then control your actions. So regulate your thought is connection third to sixth. Control your actions is connection between fifth and second. Cultivate perseverance. Be patient. Acknowledge everything as a teacher, everything, and bless everything because it is your teacher. So be tolerant, to the point where you can transmute misfortune to good fortune, right? It's like everything, every cloud has a silver lining way of thinking. Or when you are in a conflict, put yourself in the other person's shoes, see the conflict from their perspective, because ultimately the only thing you can change is yourself. You cannot change the other person. If you see it from their perspective, you can see what in yourself nags them. And if you could adjust that, the problem could go away. Remain impartial. This means even now, where we're faced with so much potential calamity of climate or third world war or whatever, stay impartial to all of that. Have faith in what your purpose is and keep that lit in front of you at all times. And that faith in your purpose can move mountains. And then stay balanced between joy and sorrow. Moving into one or the other tips you, right? Now, for me, how I went into first presence, it was joy. It was sheer joy that brought me there. I don't know, different people must move there in different ways, but for me, it was joy. And I don't think he means that joy. He means, oh, I am happy to have a bouquet of flowers, or oh, I'm upset you didn't bring me one. That kind of joy and sorrow, right? And you can take it to all extremes. I want a child, I want it healthy. It doesn't happen that way. Stay in equanimity. So the third presence is where masters reside. It looks exactly like the first, but it's a whole scale up. And what takes you there is the fire baptism. And the fire baptism in the Gospels is the Pentecost, which is what it takes to have all 50 petals across your 6 chakras alive and well. And in a later picture, I show you how this third presence resides as master over the 7 chakras and keeps them rotating. You know, it's one thing to enter this path and start getting your chakras going, but it takes a lot of work to keep them going. And you enter different health issues as you neglect the chakras from rotating. Mostly back issues, joint issues, a different kind of problem. But being in third presence means, you know, you are in good control of all 7 chakras, and you are at a master level, which includes intuitive healing and things we all try here, there, but it takes a long time to learn how to do them, and intuitively, right? Meaning, and all that means is you move yourself out of the way, right? To have intuition be successful means you're no longer blocking it, period. It doesn't, I mean, obviously you're a better person, but getting out of the way is the biggest part of this path. So in the Pentecost, the intuition of the apostles is so heightened that they can remember languages from previous lives, and they are conversant in them and all that. That's a master level of existence. So for me, balancing the 6 has been most of my attention. You know, what is it to think in the right hemisphere? What is it to think in the left hemisphere? Which hemisphere produces fear? Or, you know, I mean, this is symbolic. Obviously, there's a lot more regions to the brain, but I look at it as the physical brain is what I call left here, and the cosmic brain is what I call right. So it's not so much the lobes that are analyzed by our science. It's more what is ours. That's the physical brain. That's our computer, and we can clean it and managing just like we do a computer. And that's where we write our code, in that left brain. But it has instinctual code in it, which we must examine. Do we want to live with it, or do we want to override it? So it's really ours to control. And the right brain is the cosmic brain, what you reach through kinesiology, for example, when you ask your muscles, am I stronger or weaker by this or that? So I took a colloquialism and used it here, but it does feel like a right and left side. It's through the right side that you enter the cosmic brain. Now you could feel them the opposite way, right? That when I say through the right side, I go like that, which is my left side. 1 second. It could be on either side, but you will recognize one side as predominantly personal and one side as predominantly cosmic. So what I want to mention about this is that this is new. It's not at all what needed to happen in the ancient initiation. In the ancient initiation, they lived in the cosmic mind. They were atavistic thinkers, and what they needed to learn was how to use the physical brain. So they had to be insulated from the cosmic mind in the king chamber of a pyramid or some cave or something, where there was enough matter between the head and the cosmos that you would silence the cosmic mind and bring alive the personal brain. So ancient initiation aimed to awaken the thinking in the left brain, which was not possible until the solar plexus came to be with the advent of Logos and Christ. Before then, you had to be an initiate to become a scientist or a philosopher or anything that involved thinking. Today, we have to do the opposite. We have to silence the left brain and then rewrite it in order to allow us to listen to the right mind. To me, I think that was one of the biggest aha moments I had, that because I was trying to understand what's going on by studying what happened in ancient initiation, and I realized, oh my gosh, it's the opposite here. And I think we've already talked about, you recognize the left brain because it's yap, yap, yap. You're washing the dishes and you're mad that your husband forgot to water the plant or whatever. That's left brain yapping, and it needs to be shut up. And the right mind, it comes like a drop of water in a quiet pond, and it creates all these water wrinkles that circularly move out. It's a very, very different feeling. So you recognize, did I have a cosmic thought, or am I bombarded by my brain? So the notion of writing over your code came to me a lot later, that I realized this needs to happen. And that's really moving away. The unlearning process is the longest and most painful. To move away from all of these things that guilt and shame have placed under your skin for so long. How do you move out of thinking good and evil, out of thinking personified monsters and issues? Yeah, there is elementals out there and we deal with them daily, but personify them or giving them a shape or whatever, the clairvoyants can see those shapes, but all they do is pull you into drama, and that's what you need to be coming out of. Yeah, so here it's, as you move, you're not really letting go the earlier presence, you just become taller in your ability to reach other levels, right? So I'm just showing them all side by side so you can see the first through seventh is the first presence, but the fourth through 10th is the second. And what I realized is that the movement up is always a fourth. So if you think about it, when we moved out of the Kabbalah to the solar plexus, the movement up was from, again, a fourth. It's and you experience these nodes as musical tones, and I believe that the concept, the harmonies of the spheres, or hearing the harmonic spheres, relates to the ability to recognize the harmony in the etheric, because everything around you harmonizes a certain way. Like a metal has a pulse, and a musical note has a pulse, and that pulse harmonizes with one of the notes. And for me, I don't have perfect pitch, meaning I cannot recognize what a note is. But once I was able to feel my etheric, I could check inside me and see where did that note harmonize. And I could tell you, oh, you're ringing an A or you're ringing a G. And the difference is that most teachings are based on the Kabbalah. So they start with a C at the bottom and they end up with a C at the top. And the first presence is really a Dorian D, which means you start at the D and you go to the C, following the notes without sharps and flats. And that's the Dorian D scale is a model scale in ancient music. You didn't have just major and minor. You had modes between them.
You mentioned before going up by 4. I didn't quite follow that.
A musical fourth, right?
Okay.
So if you do C to F,
Okay.
it takes you to the third chakra, which is F. And the fourth chakra is G, which if you say it in the do re mi scale, that is Sol, which is the sun. That's your
Which is
fourth.
the solfeggio frequencies, or
Solfege, yeah.
well, the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going up, do they relate also to dimensions? Like the third chakra, third dimension is experience here in the third dimension. 4 is fourth dimensional love and time. Or I guess the reason I asked that is the third presence where the masters are in some of the hands-on healing that I've been taught. They say that some of the energies coming from the 12th dimension. And I've noticed that the 12 and 13 is up there in the third presence. I don't know if that it should be correlated that way, or am I reading too much into it?
No, it can be correlated. I have not studied a lot of thinkers because I wanted to formulate my own thinking. So I couldn't immediately tell you what do they mean by 10th dimension or this or that. I can tell you, I know Marie Diamond, who does the dowsing and feng shui and all of that. She talks about the top of your magical hat. That's where you need to go to be your own observer. And that is if you lift your arms where the point where they meet, right? That's the top of your magical hat. And I think that's such a beautiful illustration of how high up you need to move your consciousness, right? So that would be the equivalent of the 9th in this diagram.
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
So yeah, I'm sure. I mean, numerology, dimensions, music, everything aligns to this in a certain way. The question is to figure out what way. It's very hard to speak in words about the dimensions, and I admire people who attempt to do that. If you think of how I use the elements, earth and fire and water and all of that, they are densities. I don't know that I wouldn't call them dimensions, they're densities. And I align each of them to one of the 4 central nodes. So different systems will do different things. The only reason they do it is to make it comprehensible, right? Through some other perspective. But yeah, it would be moving up dimensionally.